Congratulations, true crime addicts. We've survived another week. It is Friday, October 27th, 2023. This week, an active manhunt is continuing in Maine. An airline pilot tries to crash a plane, and a Major League Baseball player has been charged with murder. All this and more. Stay tuned.
Yes, super excited. We are all pumped to have James Renner.
James Renner on.
That James Renner has zeroed in on.
James Renner once again drops a bombshell.
Investigative journalist, reporter, James Renner, who's been on the podcast, longtime friend of mine.
All right, welcome back to True Crime This Week. I'm your host, James Renner. That's the seal of approval. As always, I want to thank Walter for manning the camera. Walter's just back from Obsessed Fest 2023 and still kind of coming down off the high of that. As a reminder, the new season of The Philosophy of Crime, my other podcast, is out. In fact, the last episode of Season 6 just came out yesterday. It's called The Boogeyman Effect, and it's about how that serial killer Sam Little is a dirty, dirty liar. So check it out if you like some trippy, heady podcasts. Let's go to the top stories. No doubt what's the top story this week. You know, the other day I was thinking it's been a while since we've had a mass shooting in the United States. Last year we had a school shooting nearly every week. And so it was no real surprise to hear this story of what's happened up in Maine. The story is still developing, but here's the rundown of what we know so far. Authorities have named Robert Card as the suspect behind these shootings, which started around 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening and left at least 18 people dead. The shootings occurred at Shemengi's Bar and Grill and a bowling alley about 10 minutes from the bar in Lewiston, Maine. 1 woman and 6 children were killed at the bowling alley, while 8 men were shot down at the bar. 3 more died on the way to the hospital, according to CBS News. The shooter used an AR-15 style assault rifle, the weapon of choice for spree killings here, with an extended magazine in scope. Police believe the shooter is a 40-year-old man named Robert Card, and he has not yet been caught. A massive manhunt is currently underway in the state of Maine, and people in the neighborhoods around Lewiston have been told to shelter in place. Card attended the University of Maine as an engineering student and is an active military member of the Army Reserves. Now, in July, leaders of the reserves told staff that Card was behaving erratically during training at Camp Smith. Law enforcement was contacted and Card was transported to a hospital for evaluation. We also know he spent 2 weeks in a mental hospital around that same time, inside a psychiatric unit. One question I still have is, why weren't his guns taken away after that extended stay at the psychiatric unit? We don't have the answer for that yet. A vehicle associated with Card was found near a boat launch in Lisbon. Card is also has a 2019 Sea-Doo green boat. He has a license for this boat, and they haven't found that yet. The U.S. Coast Guard is searching the rivers to see if he's tried to escape that way. We'll likely be talking about his capture next week. There's only a couple ways this story could end. Hopefully nobody else is killed in the meantime. An off-duty Alaska Airlines pilot tried to shut off the engines during a flight on Sunday and has been charged with 83 counts of attempted murder, according to the New York Times. 44-year-old Joseph Emerson was riding in a jump seat in the cockpit on the flight, which was flying out of Everett, Washington, bound for San Francisco. Now, this is kind of routine. Pilots, when they're off duty, can take these jump seats, which are these seats that kind of fold out from the wall, an extra seat in the cockpit to go home or to get to the next hub. About halfway through this flight, though, Emerson threw his headset and announced, quote, "I'm not okay," end quote. Then he attempted to pull 2 red handles that would have cut off fuel to the engines. The pilots, though, were able to subdue him quickly. Now, if he'd been able to successfully pull those handles down all the way, it would have shut down the engines, turning the aircraft into a very, very heavy glider, likely causing a crash. He was taken out of the cockpit and restrained. The plane landed, and Emerson was then taken by police, where he told them that he admitted this right away. He said he tried to shut off the engines because he thought he was dreaming and just wanted to wake up. He also told them that he had consumed magic mushrooms, and a lot has been made of that fact since we got that report. But he allegedly consumed these magic mushrooms 48 hours before boarding, and the effects of psilocybin would have worn off by then. So the fact that he's trying to blame the magic mushrooms, it's not going to hold up, but he may have an underlying condition that was exacerbated by that experience, because he also told them that he was having a nervous breakdown and that he had been suffering from depression for about 6 years. So if you're going to do those magic mushrooms, you should do them in a safe place, preferably under a therapeutic setting. That's what they're kind of made for, not for recreation and then boarding a plane when you don't exactly know that you can control yourself. So don't buy the mushrooms theory, but there are some other underlying mental conditions here, but such a sad story. Former Major League Baseball pitcher Danny Serafini has been arrested in connection with the killing of his wife's father and attempted murder of her mother, according to the LA Times. The killing occurred on June 5th, 2021, in a neighborhood in North Lake Tahoe. That's when they found the body of 70-year-old Robert Spohr, who had been shot to death. Spohr's wife, Wendy Wood, had also been shot, but she survived. Sadly, though, a year after the incident, she died by suicide. Surveillance video from nearby that house showed a man in a hooded sweatshirt with his face covered and wearing a backpack walking toward the home a few hours before the murder. An investigation since then by police has led them to Serafini and a friend of his wife's, 33-year-old Samantha Scott. Police say that Serafini had lost all the money he made in the majors through bad investments, which included a bar in Sparks, Nevada, which was featured in the reality TV show Bar Rescue. His debt may have been the motive in the murder, but he, of course, remains innocent until proven guilty. Such a strange case. I kind of wonder what the wife's friend had to do with any of this. So this is a story that's going to unfold in the coming weeks. All right, those are the top stories. Now, a word from our sponsor. We got a new sponsor on True Crime this week. Here's an ad for the new Turbo Encabulator. For a number of years now, work has been proceeding in order to bring perfection to the crudely conceived idea of a transmission that would not only supply inverse reactive current for use in unilateral phase detractors, but would also be capable of automatically synchronizing cardinal grammeters. Such an instrument is the Turbo Encabulator. Now, basically, the only new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it is produced by the module interaction of magnetoreluctance and capacitive directance. The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surrounded by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with the panametric fan. The latter consisted simply of 6 hydroscopic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar waneshaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal Lotus O delta type, placed in panadermic semi-boloid slots of the stator, every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible Tremy pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the grammeters. The Turbo Encabulator has now reached a high level of development and it's being successfully used in the operation of Nover trunnions. Moreover, whenever a force-score motion is required, it may also be employed in conjunction with a drawn reciprocation dingle arm to reduce sinusoidal replination. Check out the new Turbo Encabulator by Wintrex today. And that's the sponsor. I will be back in 2 and 2 with more true crime this week. We've got a lot coming. I want to talk to you about Amy Mihaljevic. The anniversary is today. So stick with me. I'll be right back.
Please hang up and try again.
And welcome back to PM Magazine and your host, Michael Stanley. A couple months ago, I brought you the story of Alicia Navarro, a teen girl who went missing from Arizona and then walked into a Montana police department this past August, to tell them to take her off the missing persons list, that she was safe, and she didn't want to return home. But police in Montana, they wanted to know a little bit more, so they served a search warrant on the apartment that 18-year-old Navarro shared with her boyfriend, 36-year-old Edmund Davis. What they found there prompted police to arrest Davis this week. He is charged with multiple counts of sexual abuse of children. He apparently had dozens and dozens of images of kids on his phone, which police have had confiscated from his apartment. Davis is now facing life in prison should he be found guilty on all charges. I think we kind of saw where that story would go from the very beginning. On Valentine's Day, 1988, the body of a young woman was found in a dumpster in Jenkins County, Georgia. She had been wrapped in plastic and duct tape and then placed inside a large nylon suitcase. She had died 4 to 7 days before her body was discovered, and they determined that the cause of death was asphyxiation. Now, for 35 years, her identity has remained unknown. Police tried using dental records and fingerprints to ID her, but were unable to find any matches to missing persons in the database. But earlier this month, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and our friends at Othram Inc. used DNA testing and genetic genealogy to identify her as one Chong-Eun Kim, who was 26 years old at the time of her death, according to Fox 5 Atlanta. Now, the reason she'd not been identified easily through dental records and fingerprints was due to the fact that Chong-Eun Kim was from Korea and had come to the States in 1981 before living in Hinesville, Georgia. Police are now asking for anyone who knew Chong-Eun Kim to contact authorities as they search for her killer. And today marks the 34th anniversary of the abduction of Amy Mihaljevic, which is a case that's very close to me. It was the subject of my first book. Amy and I were the same age, both born in 1978. And on October 27, 1989, she was abducted from the shopping plaza in Bay Village on a Friday afternoon, across the street from the police station. There were 2 witnesses that saw a man lead her away from the plaza. And in the days leading up to her abduction, this man, allegedly had been calling her at home and he said that, hey, I work for your mother. She just got a promotion. Why don't you meet me at the shopping plaza and I'll take you to get her a gift. It'll be our little surprise. Don't tell anybody. Of course, she told a couple friends. That's how we know to this day. So just in time for the anniversary, a new website called AI Witness Report has released a rendering created by artificial intelligence that is a photorealistic picture of Amy's abductor based on the police composite sketch. Here it is. Now this was rendered by AI from that composite sketch. This may be closer to what the man looks like, maybe totally off, but it's a really interesting use of the AI technology in an effort to solve some of these cold cases. There are a lot more of these AI-generated police sketches on that website. Again, that's AI Witness Report. Google it, check it out. Some wild stuff on there. Very creepy. If you have any information about the abduction and murder of Amy Mihaljevic, please contact Bay Village Police. Over to weird news. This week, police in Rochester, Minnesota arrested Connor Bowman for the murder of his wife, Betty. According to the New York Times, Betty Bowman was admitted to a hospital on August 16th complaining of severe gastrointestinal distress. Once there, her condition deteriorated rapidly. She died 4 days later. Now, during her autopsy, they found something peculiar. High levels of the drug colchicine. It was in her system, and they determined that she had been poisoned. Police didn't have to look too far, though. Her husband, Connor, had worked for the Poison Control Center at the University of Kansas Health System. When police interviewed their friends, they discovered that Betty had talked about leaving Connor after reports of infidelity. Oh, Connor. He also took out a life insurance policy on his wife for $500,000. They also pulled Connor's internet search history and found that he had conducted several internet searches about the drug colchicine and had also searched, quote, internet browsing history, can it be used in court? The answer is yes, Connor. Yes, it can. Jumping to pop culture, available on Max, now streaming on Max, don't call it HBO, it's Max, is a new true crime documentary called The Savior Complex. If you haven't heard about it or watched it yet, here's the write-up. The Savior Complex chronicles the controversial story surrounding Renee Bach, a young American missionary who felt called by God to set up a charity for malnourished children in Jinja, Uganda. So far, so good, right? What a nice person. But years later, shocking allegations arose that Renee was treating the sick children herself without medical qualifications. Detailing Renee's divisive journey, the series addresses the wider questions around white saviorism and the ethics of foreign aid work done in the name of humanitarian and religious ideals. Spoiler alert, lots of kids died. Terrible, tragic story, and started with the best intentions. Very complex, complicated story. Check it out, The Savior Complex on Max. And the book recommendation. This is kind of this is from an indie publisher, but if you're into true crime, I think you're going to dig this one. It's called True Crime Redux, and it's by the author Stephanie Kane. The murder of Betty Fry goes unpunished for decades. Also, the reason I'm recommending this is I like true crime that kind of messes with the tropes of true crime and the format of true crime. And this book is what the kids would call meta, if they were born in, it's a 20-year-old reference. Anyways, back to the story. This murder of Betty Fry goes unpunished for decades. Kane, that's the author, ex-wife of Betty's son Doug, finally decides to tell her story by fictionalizing the events she witnessed as well as those about which she simply speculated. The result was the novel Quiet Time. She shortly finds out, however, that fiction can oftentimes accurately mirror reality. In her new true crime nonfiction, True Crime Redux, Kane artfully describes the chain of events that followed the publication of that novel and brings a forgotten cold case back to life. She dives deeper into the inner workings of modern crime and punishment through the retelling of events she played an involuntary role in. This strikingly transparent report of a brutal homicide engulfs readers from the very first line. True Crime Redux is thus a perfect pick for true crime readers looking for a compelling, true story that leaves no stones unturned. So it's a true crime book a fiction book about a crime that eventually, I think, solves or gives information about the crime. Kind of trippy idea. I like it. I'm going to check it out, True Crime Redux. And that's the story for this week. It's been a big week. If you are into true crime drama, Google Obsessed Fest and see what comes up. And beyond that, it's the weekend. Enjoy yourself. have a fun time before the weather turns. And in the words of the incomparable Murray Saul, the godfather of Cleveland radio, that means we gotta get down, damn it. True Crime This Week is a Fearful Symmetry production. Photo and artwork are licensed through Shutterstock. If you like the cut of my jib, I have another podcast you might enjoy called The Philosophy of Crime, in which I attempt to solve the big questions behind our true crime obsession by looking to philosophy for answers. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. Sit, Brownie, sit. Good dog.